All right, welcome to our Wednesday name tags chat, where we talk with interesting and accomplished members of the adaptive community. Today, we most assuredly have an interesting member of the community and accomplished as well. Paul Martin has done a variety of sports. He's probably known best as a triathlete, but as a marathoner, 3:24 marathoner, which is really pretty darn fast, 39:18 10K. So I'd say you're a runner as well. World championship medal in cycling, four world championship medals in triathlon. Also a member of, not currently, but was a member of the U.S. Adaptive Ski Team, and also the amputee hockey team. You were a hockey player to start out, right? You were a goalie.
I was a goalie back in the day. Yeah, I was a goalie growing up.
Are you
Yeah.
still a goalie now, or do you?
No, but I still play. Actually, tonight was we were supposed to play tonight. Because of COVID, I decided I'm done. I'm gonna have to back out of that locker room for a while. But I still play. I've been a skater since I was 25. I think actually 5 weeks before my accident, I joined our first men's league as a skater as opposed to a goalie. And so most of my skating life as a hockey player has been on a prosthetic.
Well, it's kind of funny because most of the goalies don't want to be goalies, right? I mean, they want to be goalies, but they also want to get out and score goals.
Yeah,
so once you guys are liberated from the goal, is that what happened to you?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to play. I was late to the game. I was 10 years old when I started playing hockey, and I didn't know the rules, couldn't skate, and then wasn't that good. And a very hockey-centric town in my French-Canadian town in Gardner, Mass, and lots of hockey going on there. And when I moved back from being away from a few different places we lived, I got into hockey, and I was horrible. And they said, "Well, want to try net?" And I was like, "I'll try net." I remember thinking at 10 years old or 11, whatever it was, like, you stop the puck. You just get in front of it. How hard can it be? And I got in net, and I was a decent goalie, and I stayed there, and I never came out until 20 or so.
Until now. And now you're like, okay, I'm not going back in net. Now it's like, I want to score goals.
Probably been 20 years ago. I got in net again, with the prosthetic. I was like horrible. I'm like, we needed a goalie at drop in. The goalie didn't show up. I'm like, I'll try it out again. It's been a while, but yeah, it was.
What do you consider yourself as a Paralympic athlete? And not all of these sports are Paralympic sports, but as an adaptive athlete, do you have one sport that you say that's really who I am, or is it a little bit of everything?
That's a great question. It reminds me of a couple things. First of all, I guess I would identify with myself as a triathlete. Like if I had to pick one, it would be triathlon. But I remember being with showing up the first day at one of our cycling camps for the year. First day there, new coach, new teammates, and he said to me, I can already tell you're a lifestyle athlete. You're not a cyclist. You're a lifestyle athlete. I'm like, ooh, I like that. I'm a lifestyle athlete.
What does that mean? What's a lifestyle athlete?
Like I identified exactly what he meant at the moment, because I wasn't committed to cycling. I wasn't committed to skiing. I wasn't committed to triathlon. I just love to do a lot of stuff. I love to do sports. I love to be active. And, I tended, I did cycling because I was good at it. And I did triathlon for a few other reasons. But Paralympically speaking, I was a triathlete. I was a cyclist because there was no triathlon at that time. I'm sure I would have went triathlon if it was there in 2000, 2004. I just like to do a lot of stuff. I was playing hockey while I was training for triathlon. I was skiing while I was training for triathlon and cycling. I was just doing whatever I kind of enjoy doing because I enjoy doing it.
And it was easy enough going back and forth for you, because so many athletes, like we just did a talk with Elena Nichols, and she was concerned about getting hurt at the end of the ski season for basketball. And that for me, I mean, I race wheelchairs as well, and skiing, it's much easier to get hurt than it is in wheelchair racing. And so I was always concerned about that as well. Were you concerned going from one to the other, or were you just kind of just having fun?
Yeah, just having fun. I mean, my life would have been a lot different if I was ever worried about getting hurt. I unfortunately don't think that way. It would be helpful if I did sometimes.
I think I remember some Super G training at Winter Park. So this is when you're on the ski team. And we went out one day, early morning, because we'd always do early morning Super G training. And I think you sometimes were ahead of your ability.
Well said.
And it was a good morning, and Jardine, the head coach of the team who was coaching there, said, "What a great morning. Even Martin didn't stack."
Something he would have said. And I got to say, I'm kind of proud of this. These things you maybe shouldn't be proud of. But Jardine, whatever it was, 10, 12, 15 years after I left the team, he said, "You're still the best crasher I've ever seen."
So we've got lifestyle athlete and we've got the best crasher. What are you still doing for sports now?
Do a lot of CrossFit is my main kind of staying fit thing. Play hockey still once, twice a week, and CrossFit 4 or 5 days a week, and get out and ride my bike on occasion. I rode my bike more this summer than I had in a long time, actually.
And riding your bike now, because I mean, as a triathlete, this was what, 100 and, is that 112 or 122 in the Ironman on the bike only?
112, yeah, on Ironman.
112, and that's a 2.1 swim.
2.4, 112 on the bike, run a marathon.
Run a marathon, 26.2. And you fastest you went is 10:09
and 17 seconds.
And 17, which is important at that point, 17 seconds after you've been out there for 10 hours. Yeah. Did you know that you always had the endurance? Did you know that you were an endurance guy? Because I mean, you are an endurance guy.
No, and it's funny you asked that question because I hadn't even thought about this in a while, and I was just telling somebody the story at CrossFit yesterday. She's it'll come around here, but she's the University of Colorado Boulder Army ROTC person, and I spent when I first went to college, I joined Air Force ROTC because I thought I wanted to be a pilot and I had some big ambitions, and they put all us new freshmen on the treadmill. Or we ran around. We went on the treadmill, and my heart rate wasn't high enough. And then they had me run around the building. It wasn't high enough. Then they had me run around the building a couple times to get my heart rate high enough that they could measure it properly, because they thought there was something wrong. And I had no idea what that meant. Zero clue. And only like years later, I'm like, oh yeah, with that I had that natural endurance thing, and I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I had zero clue whatsoever.
Did you think they were just picking on you?
No, I thought it was like something wrong with me. Like, oh, my heart rate won't go up. There's got to be a problem. But I guess some natural thing I got, and I was able to take advantage of that years later. How
did you end up finding? Because triathlon was your first sport, right? So how did you end up in triathlon? I mean, first sport that you kind of did on the national level, though, right?
Let me think about that. On the national level, yeah, that was the first. Well, track and field was the first national thing I did. Just giving it a go, showing up at the national games for amputees, like not knowing anything, like a year and a half into amputation. My process just talked me into going, and like, these guys got to crush me. I'm like, I've never run track, and show up and won the 5K and had a huge blister on my stump, and learned like that was going to be my future. I didn't really know that at the time. Like the blistered stumpy is like covering my head 3 times with the skin I've lost. But I showed up and did okay, and then I did triathlon. I think I did my first triathlon later that summer, just because I wanted to challenge myself. Again, less than 3 years after my accident, and see what I could do. And I'm like, wow, I'm pretty good at this.
Tell people why your stump might blister.
Well, there's I have a relatively short stump. It's 4 3/4 inches. So what that does, there's a couple of factors to it. It's what's called.
And you're a below the knee amputee. So this is 4 3/4 below your knee. Okay.
Like this is my stump and this is my socket. It really pounds the front of my socket when I run. There's like a lot of torque right on the end, and that's where the majority of my blisters come from. And every time I impact, it's rubbing, banging, banging, banging. If you had, a 10, 12 inch, residual limb stump, there's far less impact on that one pressure point. So that's a big part of the problems that I've experienced.
Right. And it's also, it's softer skin too, right? It's not the skin that you have on the bottom of your foot, which Correct. Is really designed to take all of that abuse, right? So this is some delicate skin. I'm sure it's been toughened up along the way.
hasn't been toughened up. That's the interesting part. Like, I can't tell you how many people ask you, doesn't it callus up and get, I'm like, no, it's super thin. Always has been. Seems like it always will be. Like I use Tegaderms. I do some things I've learned along the way to kind of deal with it and lessen the problem, but it doesn't always work, and it doesn't toughen up, unfortunately.
So it's an ongoing issue. And has the technology progressed? I mean, certainly we've seen so many veterans coming back with needing prosthetics, right? And so there's been an infusion of money into the prosthetic world. Have you seen great strides in, no pun intended, have you seen great strides in the prosthetic community, in the prosthetic technology?
It's interesting. Like, a couple of things come to play there. First of all, below the knee amputees, I have my knee. So the big strides, knees have gone, really took off, and the technology goes behind into the development of prosthetic knees, because I have my knee. The foot has changed some, but I've tried the new feet. I still like the one I've been using since 1993. Like that same shock absorbing Oser product that, they tweaked it a little bit, but it's still the same pylon, the same foot. How it attaches has gotten a little bit better, but not all that much better. So it hasn't changed a whole lot for me. And now, I don't know. I can't speak for every amputee. I'm pretty sure. Once you go for those first 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years of figuring stuff out, and then you like what you like. And I've been using the same stuff for 20 years, and it's what I'm comfortable using.
But you have a variety of different legs, though, don't you? You have a cycling leg. How many legs do you have?
I probably have these days less, about 5 that get used on a somewhat regular basis. I get my ski leg, my bike leg, my run leg, my walking leg, and my hockey leg. But they all use the same kind of socket and the same liner, same attachment mechanisms. The ski leg and the hockey leg have like a hip strap and a knee brace, and there's a little more holding it on because a lot more going on. But the same kind of socket design.
Now, you had said that you did, or I'd read that you did your first road race and it might have been a half marathon. No, on your regular foot, your regular leg, and then you'd gone to an actual running leg. What was the difference? Can you describe the difference between a everyday leg and your running leg?
Actually, that's close to straight. Like, I think the first half marathon I ran was it's been so long I don't remember, but I first started running on my regular walking, like the 5K stuff. Then I think I got a dedicated foot for running, but it was still the same shock absorbing leg that I walked on, same pylon, but I didn't have a foot shell on it. It was a little bit shorter on the foot. It was angled a little bit different, but it was still a walking leg that I ran on. And I ran that first marathon in New York City in 1995 with that leg, and it blows my mind, because now I'm like, I can't stand running more than 100 meters on a walking leg. It's just like, it's so much less efficient than, when I got my first, now they call them a blade. When I got my first running foot, maybe it was, I don't even remember now, 99-ish, 2000-ish. Wow, so light. Wow, so springy. Wow, so efficient. Wow, this is awesome.
And you don't even wear a shoe on that, right? I mean, the foot incorporates the shoe as well, doesn't it?
It's just, a piece of carbon fiber with a piece of rubber stuck on the bottom of it, pretty much.
Right. So it's a pretty minimalist shoe. How is that as far as symmetry is concerned? Like, do you get more shock out of it or not? Or
I still haven't wrapped my head around this really, but because I run on a prosthetic leg, and that whole side just is always in pain to some level. Is it this much pain or is it this much pain? It's always in pain. So I can run on like an 80-year-old wooden shoe and I wouldn't care on my good side, because the other side just dominates all of my thoughts and processes, my focus and attention. Like, I run on the oldest, beatest up shoes. I literally take the bands on, cut off the heel to even it out when it's a little bit uneven. Like, I just like minimalist shoes. I don't need much. So the whole technology of running shoes is kind of, it doesn't matter to me. but you know, I'm always a little bit funky running. I look funny when I run. My hips never hurt. My back never hurts. Nothing's really out of whack. I've been asked that question so many times, like, how's your back from all this? How's your hips? I'm like, they're fine.
Really? Now that first New York City marathon that you did, and we're going to get to your books because in addition to all of the sports that Paul has played, he has written two memoirs. So is there a third one coming? I guess is the question. You can hold that for later. But that first one of the high points was your New York City marathon, right? And you got into Central Park. And New York City is an amazing marathon, isn't it? Really, you start on Staten Island, you go over the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, you go through every single borough, and then you finish. And you probably like me, like I've done a lot of workouts in Central Park. So I have a pretty decent idea of what's going on in Central Park. But that's really the first time that I kind of knew where I was. I was just taking it in. But Central Park sounded like it was absolutely brutal for you. What was that experience like at the end? Because that's your last 10K of 42K.
Yeah, well, yeah. The wrapping it up, finishing in Central Park. You know, it was from mile 20, which is in Harlem, going south. That's when, you know, I shut down. My leg really hurt. Just tough miles. It's like knockout every other mile. It's like, whew. And then as soon as I rounded onto Central Park South, I think it's 59th, on the edge of Central Park, and then there's all the people and all the screaming, and everybody, you know, has to freaking yell for the one-legged marathoner, or you're going to hell. You have to. So everyone's screaming, right? And I'm just like on top of the world. It's like my first big thing that I've ever done that's really significant. I crossed that finish line and bawled my eyes out. I was just like the people, the screaming, the intensity, the everything, how much pain I just went through. Like it hurts way more running on a prosthetic than it does not on one. Trust me.
But it was, I mean, there were times that you were thinking about stopping in that last 10K, right? I mean, the pain was just so much. You were getting breakdowns of the equipment, of your leg and everything, weren't you?
Yeah, it was that. The blisters were mile 20-ish is when I first my leg hurts a lot right now. I got to run freaking 10K on this. Wow. Okay. I can't stop. I got to keep going. And, you know, it was slow miles, but I kept shuffling along, kept moving, and whatever it was, 4:20, 4:47, 14.
Is this on the wall there in your office? Or?
I got that, because that was such a life turner for me, that finish line. That's like, that photo is hanging over there.
Okay. So it's not just the time that's written on the wall. It's a photo of you at the finish with the time.
I've got it.
I was imagining like the swim records that they have like at the swimming pool, where they're like, oh, the 50-meter record for this pool is this or that.
Right. No, it's not that. Okay. You know, I've been enough finish lines, you know, there's been a number of photos, but like that one and the 10:09, which is over here, Ironman, you know, those two photos are in the office.
What do those remind you? Why do you keep them there?
Because I really just think the marathon, because that first moment of when I crossed that finish line, I'm like, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't care what it is, because I want this feeling back. I want this feeling that I can't get anywhere unless I go out and get it. You know, maybe it was 3 years before I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree. I was kind of proud of myself. I had a job, made relatively good money. I, you know, had the career going. I had what I needed, but no single paycheck, all of them combined, did not give me that joy. You know, there was a way more to life than working for this company. And that what's really set me off, is like that finish line feeling. I need it back.
And what was it? Was it accumulation of all the work that you'd done? Was it the pain you'd gone through? What was the euphoria at the finish line?
I think it was really centered on something some people might consider very tragic. Losing a leg has led to this really, really, really wonderful experience I'm having right now. And I know there's more of these out there. You got to go get them, because I don't care how many welders I sell this year, it ain't gonna like fill me full of joy. You know, there's more out there. I got to do it now. I
And
got
that's
to.
a reminder. That first taste is go get something more. Go find a way to get this feeling. But that feeling, like there's a lot that has to happen to get to that feeling, right? You can't run a marathon every day and have that same feeling. There are a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, and probably moments that you wanted to quit along the way too, I would imagine.
Yeah, lots of those. Absolutely. And you know, I've done 10 Ironmans to date, and there's lots of quitting thoughts, lots and lots of quitting thoughts, and lots of why the hell am I out here doing this? I have never been this freaking miserable in my life. And then, oh, finish line. Woo! This is the greatest feeling I've ever had. Let's do it again next year. You know, the pain goes away kind of quick. I mean, I haven't given birth, but you know, you have another kid after that. So yeah,
Is it just at the finish line that it goes away, that the pain goes away? So that's the moment when all the work matters is at the finish line, or are there points along the way as far as training where you say, no, this is what matters, or is it that finish line?
it's primarily that finish line. I mean, there's been a lot of training sessions too where I have not been happy. Like I'm not motivated. I'm in pain. I don't want to be here right now, but this is what I do, and I know why I'm doing it. So I'm going to keep grinding. And you know, I don't. It makes me think of my relationship with you remember Ron Williams, the cyclist?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
His fellow BK, and there's a couple other guys that go with it, but he's primarily the one that comes to mind because he's a good friend, and he was, you know, he was a cohort of mine. He was my era. We raced together. We had the same disability. He's beat me a few times, but he would almost always beat me in training, and I would almost always beat him on race day, because like that's what I'm here for. This is why I'm here. I'm not really motivated in training. I do what I got to do. I do what I got to do, but this is why I'm here. So I always enjoyed that race day.
So it's the lights come on. What's the difference for you? Because that can be a really difficult thing for a lot of people. There are a lot of people who train better than they compete. Why for you was the competition when your best came out?
I don't know that I can really tell you why, although I can tell you the experience that might point to it. So the one world championship that I won was a time trial in Germany in 2002. And I just felt good. And I got in the gate, and geez, what's his name? Oh, it's been too long. One of the coaches, this guy from, I think it was from the Czech Republic, he held my, you know, they grab you by under the seat and hold you steady while the clock ticks, and then you take off. And I'm just holding my bars. I looked up at him. I'm like, I love racing. And he said, what you do, Paul? And I was just like, I love this. And I went out, tore it up, finished the race. And, you know, it was maybe 30 seconds later, they told me that I think it looks like I won. And I was like, today is just a good day. I love this. It's all happening.
When you went out of that start, did you have a feeling that you were going to win? When you told him you love to race, did that mean I'm going to win?
I don't know if it specifically meant that, but it meant, you know, I'm going to do as good as I ever could today. Today's it's all the parts are here. And I did my training. I feel good. I'm rested. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I know what I'm doing. And interestingly enough, I was trailed by our mechanic. And I remember him saying after the race, he's like, all I remember was thinking is, Paul, you went way too fast, man. What are you doing? What are you doing? And he didn't know that I could hold that, you know, because I guess I'd been prepared.
You've been prepared. Is there something that you tell yourself? Is it about the finish line? Because you're going to encounter that kind of pain, especially if you're going out what he considers to be too fast. You're going to be managing lactic acid the whole way along. what's the reminder for you? What do you tell yourself when it's too difficult? How do you keep going?
I guess there's a couple answers to that question also. One, I've been doing it long enough, so I know what that threshold is I can hold on to. I know how much pain I can handle. I know when my lactate's flushing. If I'm going too hard, I know that, oh, I'm gonna hurt. I'm gonna pay for this if I don't. So I know where that is. And I think that helped me a lot that day. And reminds me of another story of Ironman when I set the world record. It's all about perspective and mindset and managing pain, physical pain, mental pain, that whole thing. Ironman, another 10 hours, you're thinking about a lot of shit. When I was out there, pardon the language, for that time trial, it was like, I think it was 27 minutes. So didn't have to think about a lot. But in 2005 in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I was engaged and I married that wonderful woman. My fiance,
I didn't know if that was engaged in the race or you were engaged to a woman. Okay.
A wonderful woman. And her dad, and I might choke up, forgive me if I do, her dad was dying of pancreatic cancer. Mm-hmm. And when we drove the 24 hours over a couple of days from here up to Idaho, or not 12 hours, whatever it was, we got there, and shortly after we arrived, got the call that her dad had a couple of days to live, and so she flew back to Australia. She's Australian, and I stayed to race. And on that 5+ hours on the bike, and more so on the bike than the run, but I remember on the bike, you're just in that one position, cranking, and things hurt, back hurts, leg hurts, lungs hurt. And I'm like, this isn't pain. I'm doing this to myself. This is not suffering. I could turn up another notch. No, that is suffering. That hurts. This is just my choice.
Pancreatic cancer is what's suffering.
Yeah, that whole family is doing not well right now. And I'm doing fine. This pain is not. This is temporary. And that really helped me dial it up and push. And I give Dave a lot of credit for that. And and on the run, same feeling, but not quite as intense on the run. But it was more at that point. I was really managing my own pain on the run, and finishing it. It was there. Some other force was giving me a little bit more.
Was it your way of paying tribute to him, of honoring him, to say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to hurt myself as much as I can and go as fast as I possibly can? Is that what was going through your mind? Like this is for him.
Yeah, not really intentionally, not until I got into the bike for whatever time it was. I don't remember now, but I just remember thinking on the bike, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but think about it, Paul. You can pull over anytime you want, pain will go away. That just helped. Just helped somehow, tapped into it.
Well, that's where sport can give you that perspective, right? The perspective is, this is, in some ways, it's a preparation for what you might encounter in life. You put yourself in challenging positions, right? Is that some of how you've looked at sport? Have you sought challenges to prove yourself to yourself, or why have you done it, or is it just fun? Yeah,
there's probably a lot there. I lost my leg when I was 25, but that wasn't the first big thing. My childhood wasn't the most horrible in the world, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. When I was 12, my mom was sent away to a hospital for some mental disorders, and when I was 16, I put myself in a foster home because my dad was not the most pleasant person to be around, and I made that happen. I put myself into this foster home and made it happen, and that was not all that great. And that whole, if you can picture it all, the whole backstory, was not great. And I think I'd been through enough. When I lost my leg, I'm like, well, I could probably make something out of this. The whole foster thing was really good to me. I went to a state school for free, almost free. That one of the little shining benefits of that. And, I learned, my life got better when I crossed that and made that difficult decision. And, I learned at that young age, and I'm not a victim. I'm just in charge of my own destiny. If there's some stuff going on that ain't cool, make a change, make things better, make it work for you. So
it's an interesting point, because with this this comes from this podcast comes from our Nametags program, which is our school program. And we have a thing called our 4 S's of resilience, which are questions we can ask ourselves when things are difficult. And the first one's about self. And you totally nailed it. It really is, am I a victim or am I a survivor? Right. And I'd imagine you went through all of these, where the second one's about the situation. Is it overwhelming or is it a challenge? Am I alone? Do I have support? Or am I alone, or am I part of a team? And do I have one strategy or many? And looking at this, that idea of I'm not going to be a victim, and just taking the initiative to put yourself in a foster home as a kid, as a teenager, as a 16-year-old, is taking initiative for your life. When you lost your leg, when did that moment happen that you said, okay, I can make something out of this? Was this initial? Was it in the hospital? Was it afterwards? When did that happen? Do you remember?
I remember one moment very clearly that told me my life would be fine. And I don't really remember when I decided I was going to be an athlete. Like I don't wholly remember that moment, but this story, which I've told a few times and wrote about, really sums it up. I think I had gotten out of the hospital on a Tuesday, and that was 7:30 in the morning. I checked out of the hospital at 9:30 in the morning. I was
How long were you in the hospital?
Total of 3 weeks, I think it was.
3 weeks. Okay. So you got out on a Tuesday. Okay.
And I got in the shower in my apartment. And then I had hair at the time, and I got out of the shower. And I was combing my hair in front of the mirror, and I had the music on like I always do, and I was rocking out, combing my hair, singing along to Aerosmith. And I saw myself in the mirror being perfectly happy. And then I was like, holy crap, I just lost my leg, and I've never been this happy before. Like, this is the happiest I think I've ever been combing my hair. Like, this is such an amazing, defining moment. Like, I just lost my leg, and I'm perfectly happy. Win. Like, got it.
That was, I'd imagine, a surprise to a certain extent, but it sounds like you never looked back. You didn't question it. You didn't say, well, do I have any right to be happy? I just lost my leg. I should be unhappy. Just kept going.
I think I can say like maybe 5 times in 30 years, I've been bummed out about being an amputee. Like, and it's brief, goes away quick. Usually it's a pain thing, but it's some other small thing. And maybe it's been 3 times. I can't really think of it. But that moment was immensely education for me. Immense education. It was like, I got it. Well, if I'm happy, like, what the hell else am I looking for? I'm happy. Clearly, happiness was not stuck in my left foot. So, I got this. And now there's gonna be challenges and stuff, but it's not like I'm less than I was before. That was really clear at that moment.
Why did you decide to write your story? Because you've done it twice, right? So one man's leg, and then drinking out of my leg.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've read the first one. I've not read the second one. Full disclosure.
It's better. Yeah.
The first one was better.
Yeah. It's got more of a developing storyline. Kid that grows up as a troublemaker, goes in a foster home, loses his leg, recovers, finds love, finds sorrow, finds, the glory of the finish line along the way, all that, philosophical stuff that goes with it. And the second one is more of a collection of my race stories. I wrote about all my races as the years went by, and I decided to compile them, edit them, put them together, make them into a big, long story of basically my racing career and all the fun, crazy, weird stuff that goes along with it.
And that one was more of like a series of blogs in some ways, right? Like writing about your career that then became a full book.
Correct.
What was the story that you had to tell? Why write a book? Especially the first one.
There's a couple, for one, I thought I could touch some people and help them out with their situation. And if they read about what I went through, they could benefit also. That was certainly a part of it. There was that altruistic share my story. I'd done a decent amount of speaking at that point, and I heard from enough people that I affected them in some positive way. And what more could you ask than that? I'm sure you've been through that. So why not put it in writing and let other people enjoy the story when they can? hear me speak, and they get the full story too. There's a lot of stuff on stage I don't talk about, that I share in the book for sure. And I don't hold much back. If you recall, I don't mind talking about rolling fat joints and selling them in high school and being that kid, that you don't want your kid to be. I was that kid, and I, had the cocaine straw up my nose, banging my face on the mirror because I was too whacked out. And, that was a big, like, I don't want to do this anymore in my life, that stuff, which I don't think every disabled athlete story tells. Not that they don't want to tell it, but they don't have that to share necessarily. And I just wanted to share, like, no matter where you are, no matter what little situation you're in that you're not too proud of yourself or not happy about your situation, you could very well be on the step of something big.
Is it hard to achieve that level of honesty, to essentially strip yourself bare and say, look, I was a punk. I made some bad decisions. Is it hard to do that? Is it hard to put it into words where then those people reading it can interpret you differently?
Yeah, I had no problem with that part of it. The part I have a problem with it, I still kind of wonder, I have some regrets when I talk about my dad, and I didn't even tell the whole story with him, but I told enough to paint the picture. And of course I gave, well, not of course, but yes, I gave him the manuscript first, and I'm like, this is what I'm going to write. This is what I'm going to publish. Before it goes into print, you have the right to, tell me what you think if you don't want me to put this stuff in writing. He said, no, it's your story, publish it. All right. We had enough of a relationship, later on in life. But then, I learned later that, it hurt him a lot. He was hurt by it. I'm like, should I have written that? Should I have kept that to the family, kept that private? I don't know. Not so sure about that.
It's an interesting question. I don't know. You've probably read, like, or maybe watched, like, The Great Santini. Do you remember that back in the? So I'm totally forgetting the name of the author, which is amazing. Great Santini was a movie, like, back in the 80s or whatever, and it was a military father who abused his son. Just one of those, like, the son was a basketball player and the father had been a basketball player, and he always told him, you're never going to be as good as me because you're not tough enough to do it. And it was the kind of thing where, the kid would come in after a game and he'd crack him across the face and, bloody nose and all of this stuff. And the Great Santini was, it was about his military and about how tough the Marine dad was. And afterwards, Pat Conroy's the author. And his dad afterwards, he had written a memoir, and his dad said, yeah, you needed me for that good story. You needed me to make you a great writer. And so it's kind of an interesting sort of twist on it that, you tell that and you have to exercise your demons, and it's some of what happened, and how do you tell it? And that's the hardest part about writing that kind of a story. You think that you're writing a memoir, you're writing an autobiography, and it's your story, but your story has a whole lot of other people in the story, and you might remember it differently than they do.
Right. 100%. Yeah. And he's like, and that's what he said, because I have a whole different recollection of all that. I'm like, this is the impression you left on me. This is what I get. And then, and it went on, he didn't change a whole lot. And, for years, it was still difficult to be in the same space, but.
Yeah, no, that's a hard one, but probably, that's the hard thing about writing those kinds of stories too, isn't it? That somebody else might be going through exactly that kind of experience. And you're talking about empowering people, having people gain from your life experience, and losing a leg in some ways wasn't nearly the most traumatic thing that you had.
Right.
And it might be that somebody else needs that somebody else is in a difficult situation and can't find their way out of it, to say, okay, well, this is how Paul did it. This is what he did. And that resilience is something, do you think that the resilience is something that is gained from those experiences? Is something you're born with, or is it something that you gain from all of those experiences that make the trauma in some ways a little bit easier because you've had a lot of problems along the way, you've had difficulties?
Yeah, I think there's a definite correlation. There's a little bit of nurture, a little bit of nature, and I've said this before too. Like I was the perfect guy to lose my leg. I was the right age, 25. I wasn't in high school. I didn't have to all that stigma that goes with that. I wasn't too old that I had to figure out how to do it. I was strong enough and willing enough to to run with it, and I'd been through some stuff before, so like this wasn't necessarily the hardest thing emotionally. Personally, I've been through more personal pain. Physical pain was probably right up there with the most physical pain I've ever had. But the personal part of it, I'd already kind of conquered and knew I could handle. So, and I honestly feel like I was the right guy to be in that accident. And on that note, which makes me think of this story. So, surely, 6 months after I had my accident, went home to my hometown gardener there. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio at the time, working at this company. Went home, see some friends, and they were kind of there to support me. And this was still amazes me that how impactful this moment was. An old friend from high school, somebody I knew since I was 10, 11 years old, got in a lot of trouble with, did a lot of fun stuff with. He said to me, Paul, me and the guys were talking, like, we're glad that you're the one that lost a leg. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, you're the only one that could have handled it. And I was like, really? That's how you think of me? You hold me up that I'm the one that can handle it? That's huge. That's really humbled to hear that.
That is I actually had a similar experience while I was still in the hospital. One of my high school buddies called me up, and in high school for me was probably in a lot of ways the smartest people I've ever been around. Students, teachers. It was the hardest experience in a lot of ways. It was the most challenging experience, and this guy called me up and he's like, of all our friends, you're the only one who can handle this. And my response was kind of your response too, was like, wow, like I looked up to you guys. Like, why do you think that I'm the one who could do it? But it's also, you ended up running with it. Do you feel like you're a better person now than you were before? Or are you just the same person? How do you look at yourself? Is because there's a point of demarcation, right? Is there, do you look at yourself differently before you lost your leg than after you lost your leg?
In a lot of ways, yeah. I think I'm a better person for sure. I mean, I think just age made me a better person for one. I think a lot of us just get better as people, as humans, as we get older. I know certainly I was on I kind of righted the ship before my accident, but I was still, a bit of a crazy party guy, and I kind of had that reputation after I lost my accident, after I lost my leg too. And but I became far more self-confident after my accident, far more like self-esteem.
Why is that? How did that work?
I think from a couple things. First of all, like before I lost my leg, and whether it wasn't that whole, but certainly through my early 20s at the very least, halfway through college, like I never felt like I was the least important person in the room. Like no one wants to talk to me. Like, why would anyone want to talk to me when they could talk to that guy? That kind of thing. And then when I had my accident, and this was also something that totally didn't see it coming. And I don't know if, other athletes or disabled individuals, folks with a disability have had a similar experience, but I got out on a Tuesday, like I mentioned, at the hospital. On Saturday, I was like around the house for 4 or 5 days. I'm like, okay, now I'm bored. Let's go back to work. And I went right back to the office on Saturday on crutches because I had to get like back in the mix. And I went back to work, and everybody was like totally giving me that vibe, like, you just lost your leg. You're back at work. You're cracking jokes. You seem like you're fine, like attitude wise. And I was kind of fine attitude wise, and I was just happy to be back. And I got the vibe from everybody, like, wow, be more like him. Like, wow, I wish I was, and I would hear it, not just the vibe, but feel like, wow, thank you. I'm not going to complain. for the rest of the week. Like I'm done complaining maybe for the whole year. Like you're showing me there's nothing to complain about. And I'm like, thanks, but I'm just being me. I'm just like, trying to get my own shit together here and be entertained during the day and working instead of being at home watching Jerry Springer, which was on back then, or whatever I was doing. So it was just like getting back at it, and it was helping other people. And I was like, okay.
You became exemplary in some sense. I mean, you said that before you were kind of forgotten. You were the guy that nobody wanted to talk to, and then all of a sudden you're like you're Superman. You're How was that? Did you have to reconcile that with your image of yourself? Because you said, I'm just doing what I do. I'm just showing up. Like I haven't even done anything yet. Did you have to reconcile their image of you with your image of yourself, or did you have to live up to it too?
No, I don't think I had to really reconcile anything. I don't remember having any kind of struggle with that in any way. The only struggle I had early on was like, I hear all the little kids staring at me, like that thing was probably the only uncomfortable part of the whole story. Like, why are people staring at me? Besides that, no really other problems.
Did this essential pat on the back, did it help you say, okay, I'm going to do more now? Did it push you to do more? Their reaction to you?
I don't think that did. I think it was my own, like, I was always pretty energetic, always pretty athletic. Never necessarily put my athleticism in the right place, but I was always pretty good at whatever I tried to do. And I was like, okay, I've got all this energy, I'm fresh out of college. I'm 25. I'm gonna do something. Let's try triathlon, see how it goes. And like, oh wow, I can swim okay. Turns out I'm pretty good on a bike. I didn't know. That was the first sport I really tried. It was my friend's hybrid bike just to get somewhere. Like I went for a ride and let me try that out. I'm like, wow, I'm sweating. I'm doing something. This was, a few months after my accident, whatever it was, 8-10 months. And I was like, cool, I can ride a bike. It doesn't hurt. It's kind of normal, and like running hard. I couldn't run for a good year and a half until I had a good leg to run on. First leg was a total piece of crap that I couldn't do shit on. And then I was running. I was biking. I was moving. I was sweating. And then I finally got that good run leg. And I was like, okay, swim, bike, and run. I can do all that stuff and beating more than half the people. Like I'm getting, and then I'd been skiing on my crappy prosthetic leg, the first one with duct tape, and like skiing I wasn't that good of a skier to begin with, and I went skiing and it wasn't that much different. And I knew there was competition in skiing. I didn't really know about the disabled other stuff, but I knew there was disabled skiing, and I'd seen it at a resort I was at somewhere. And I'm like, oh wow, that guy's got one leg. I'm like, better than that guy. So let's move out to Colorado. Start skiing.
How did that happen? So you were back in Massachusetts and decided to move out to Colorado?
I was actually living in Jersey at the time, and I was recruited by this company when I went to school in University of Massachusetts at Lowell, went to Ohio to do the job that I was recruited for, and sent to Jersey to do the job, and then lived there doing the job for 2-3 years, and moved to Colorado from there.
Wow. And you said you weren't that good. You moved to Colorado, just said, okay, I'm going to do that triathlon thing. Seemed like it worked out okay. Why don't I try something else? Is this the thought process?
I know, like skiing was fun, right? Skiing doesn't really hurt, except when you crash into stuff at high speeds. But skiing itself doesn't really hurt. Running hurts, running just hurts. It hurts your stump. But skiing didn't really hurt too much, and just seemed like a kind of a sexy, fun thing to do. And I enjoyed going fast down the hill. I still had to figure it out. I didn't know what I was doing. And as you might lay witness, a few years later, as I learned to ski, I made the U.S. team, but I wasn't that good. I was okay at best. I was not really a great alpine skier. I was pretty decent at bombing down the hill, but I could not freaking slalom ski to save my life. And GS, and not so great. Okay, I think the one podium I ever got was, or maybe I got a couple podiums, once in the GS and once in the Super G, maybe another one or two along the way. But
the beauty of skiing for you is that training in skiing is really like the race. It's not any different. I mean, it's not 2 runs of slalom or 2 runs of giant slalom, but training for skiing really, I mean, granted, there are times you're doing drills and there are a variety of other things, but a lot of it is you go run the course, and that's not that much different than racing. You might not strip down, you might not be in your suit, you might have your jacket on, but it's kind of like racing for training. So it sounds like it's right up your alley.
Yeah, right. And that's why I think I really enjoyed Super G and downhill training. Loved it. It was just so much fun bombing down the hill. Still kind of was always miserable doing Super G, doing slalom. Just didn't have the fast feet. You know, just couldn't put it all together. I'm not a technique guy. I'm not a finesse guy. I'm a like, that's why I'm good at running and biking. It's just bombing down the hill. But like, if it's any of that finessey stuff, like hockey, I have hands of stone on the ice. I can't shoot and score and do all that stuff. But I skate. I'm a great back checker. I break up plays. I can, I enjoy the speed of the game and having fun with the guys. All that stuff I enjoy. But yeah,
All the dirty stuff. Yeah. Getting dirty.
I'm a grinder. If I can happen to be in front of the net and muck it around until it goes in, like, that's the goal. I happen to score.
But that's hockey. I mean, you watch playoff hockey and it's one of those, like, you're just fighting for an inch in hockey. It seems like you just fight. And then maybe you get that one little inch and then moment of daylight and then somebody's there. And yeah, hockey's a tough sport. It's a great sport to watch, but on back, your racing as training reminded me, I want to drop back into the book if that's okay, because the idea of writing, you said that you came to it from speaking. And speaking, I don't know where I acquired this knowledge, but somebody had told me at one time that sometimes you didn't necessarily know exactly what you were going to say when you got on stage, and that things often worked out pretty well, but there wasn't necessarily the practice, there wasn't necessarily the training, the preparation. It was race day when you got on stage, and race day sometimes worked out, but writing is an entirely different endeavor where you have to show up every single day. And I remember there was a coffee shop, right? Isn't this how it worked? You sequestered yourself in a coffee shop to write the first book?
I have two coffee shops.
What was that process like?
Yeah, I think once I, what kind of sparked me to write it was the second book was a collection of stories, right? So I was writing stories about my racing, and people would let me know, like, you really enjoy writing about your stories. You're a great writer. I'm like, really? I'm just writing. I don't really know. I don't have any training. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I write my stories. I try to make them entertaining and and educational, and bring a reader in, and people would give me, some kudos. Like, really love writing your stuff. You should write for a magazine or something. I'm like, I guess I'm okay at this. So that was like, gave me some confidence. And then people would say, it's good stuff here, man. You should write a book. I'm like, what really? Getting the story out is one of it. It was one part. The second part is, you're speaking. It's good to have a book. Okay, that'd be a good combo. And I'm really freaking broke right now, so maybe they'll give me some money. Because I don't know if you remember this about me, but I never had any money. I never had it. I had a crappy car. I was always on a shoestring all the time. Like, there was something called the Paul Martin factor with my friends. Like, if I was around, everyone had to pitch in for my part of the meal. Like, because I had no money. Like, Paul Martin factor, an extra 10% for everybody. I was always broke. But I was committed, right? So I was like, I don't care how broke I am.
You brought some humor. You were contributing to the meal.
Right, exactly. I got a story to tell. Who else has been to Europe this year? I've been here. I can tell you a couple of stories. So yeah, and so I realized I could, let's give it a go. And then once I started, then I was hooked. And I met you. Do you remember how the book really got started? Do you remember that part in the first opening page?
I think I do. Can I ask the question, and maybe that gets it to you? Will your family drive with you at night?
They will.
They let you drive at night, really?
They do. The majority of my sleeping at the wheel stories were during the day, actually.
Oh, were they during the day? Okay. And so it was rocking you to sleep. Just being behind the wheel of a car was
that whole lack of self-preservation thing, that I possessed. I'm better now. I've been falling asleep in good 30 since the accident, I think. So.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good reminder not to fall asleep, I think.
A few crashes before then.
How many crashes before then?
Sleeping at the wheel, probably 5.
Really?
Yeah, it's not good. Don't be like me.
No, no. I mean, not that you were necessarily doing anything bad. You just had some sort of narcoleptic
Just comfortable.
association with driving.
As my dad later said, it's kind of the way you burn the candle at both ends. That's kind of the problem. I'm like, yeah, probably right. Live hard, work hard, party hard,
Right.
tired all the time. Go go go. And then when I'm done going, I mean, I still like. I go to my go go go. I go to my kids' piano lesson. They start playing the piano. I sit down. I fall asleep because I just stop moving. Once I stop moving, I'm done. There's always
Part shark.
so much going on in the middle. So
Yeah. Part shark. You have to keep moving to stay alive, right?
But
So did I not get it right? The beginning of the story.
no, you didn't get it right. Nice try though. But there was some facts to the stuff. I got pulled over in Fraser, Colorado, driving to the YMCA up this road to swim. I was doing a swim workout on my way. It was snowing hard, and I couldn't follow the line so well. And I got pulled over, and I had to do the whole thing. I'm wearing Speedos. I'm not drinking. I'm going swimming. But my license had been suspended for not paying a traffic ticket back to the no money thing. So my license was suspended, and that's a mandatory 5 days in jail. I found out the hard way. Yeah, so I spent 5 days in the Hot Sulphur Springs County lockup. And actually, I was skiing for the U.S. team at the time, and the judge's team skied for the U.S. junior team. He's like, I'll give you to the end of the ski season, then you got to come do your time. So that's when the 1 year I skied with the U.S. team, went to Europe, did a thing, and ended up, you might remember, I didn't have the best relationship with the coach. I came home a little early, checked myself into jail because I was so freaking fired up to start writing. I'm like, this is perfect opportunity. Okay. 5 days with nothing to do. I brought paper, pen, and started writing, and came up the first bunch of chapters and did 2,500 push-ups in those 5 days, and literally sat in my car, checked out, sat in the car, and went, that was freaking awesome. That was way better than I thought jail could be. I'm fired up. Like, I made some friends. I did a bunch of push-ups. I got this book going. Like, I took jail and made it work for me. I'm like, bring it. Like, I look forward to shit going wrong because something always goes right. I always find the good thing. I do. And I don't say I'm great. I'm not because I'm blessed with the ability, because I go out of the way to find the good thing. And that's not by accident.
Has that always been the case? Have you always been an optimist in that respect?
100%. As much as I had the self-esteem, I always know there's something good coming. There's always something good coming. Still believe. Yeah.
That is amazing on the jail side, because I actually did 3 presentations in a jail one time in like north of San Diego, and I went in, and I think I made the mistake of, I was watching Sons of Anarchy at the time, the biker gang, and I was like, oh, I am such a target in here, and just, like the 500-pound door opens, and you step through, I roll through, and then that one closes and the other one opens, and you're in jail. And I went back, and I literally, I was staying at a buddy's house, and I went back and took a nap for 3 hours after being in jail. I was exhausted. So you had an entirely different experience than I had. I was like, I mean, you might be okay going back to jail. I mean, it might be this kind of thing where I've got to write a new book. Like, maybe I should go to jail. What can I do? How can I get this thing started? Get a kickstart. But yeah, I didn't want to go back.
I hope you don't. I hope you don't.
What are you doing now? You have kids, right? 2 kids, 2 boys?
3 boys. 3 boys.
3 boys.
14, 13, and 10.
14, 13, and 10, is that what you said? And what do they do? Are they into sports? And
Not that athletic, frankly. The oldest one found hockey later in life, so he's been playing hockey for a couple of years now, and I'm one of his coaches, which I really enjoy being on the ice with him and making sure he's doing things right, and doing things better than I do. Make sure he's picking his head up way more than I do. The other two, the middle one, pretty athletic kid, but super smart, like literally genius level, goes to special school because he's can't sit in the classroom like everybody else. He's got too much going on. But good at stuff, but he doesn't take interest in much. He's done, I've coached him in soccer. He's played flag football. He's done rock climbing and taekwondo, but he's never interested that long. He'll find his way. He's got long hair and he just likes being different. And he's getting into mountain biking now, actually. He's been watching mountain biking videos. I took him around a ride for a couple hours on Saturday and we had a great time together. And the little one, he's just a wonderful, super sweet young man and hasn't really enjoyed sports all that much, but really loves to bake. So if you want some brownies.
He's my guy. All right. What's, from all of your experiences, what's the story that you tell them? What do you feel you have to teach them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I hope they get it from me that and my wife, because she's got better stories than I do. She and I just both work hard, try to get the most out of every day, try to really enjoy ourselves, try to keep ourselves healthy and fit, try to be good to our communities, be good to our neighbors and to ourselves, and just show them that the right way to go is to work hard and you'll get stuff. Stuff will come to you if you put the effort in. You might not know what it's going to come, where it's going to come from, what it's going to be, but you attract positive things when you're putting positive vibes out there and working hard. The good things happen.
When you get out there and work hard and do the grinding part of it and just show up every day, that things will happen, that good things will happen. So it's a message of resilience and also a message of optimism, right? That you do the work. It's I had an acting coach at one point who said that the luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yep, couldn't agree with that more. So now my days are filled with trying to stay fit, trying to take care of them. My wife is an anesthesiologist. She works down the road. She's got hell in COVID right now, and she's covered in a spacesuit every day. And every day is hard and unpleasant. And I think yesterday, for the first time, I heard her say, "So over COVID." Like, she doesn't complain about it. She just does her job. She takes care of people. She gets them where they need to be. She's amazing, and she's a super competitive CrossFitter, like muscles and works hard, and former pro triathlete and Harvard trained anesthesiologist. She's like an amazing woman. I'm very, very, very blessed to have her in my life, and these kids are they're pretty amazing on so many levels. And so real estate is what I do nowadays. I invest in real estate. We have a good number of rentals, and I flip properties and do lease options to put people who couldn't necessarily buy a house into houses, and it's all working out pretty well. Awesome.
I think it's great what you're doing. Please thank your wife and all of those people on the front lines for all of us. I mean, I know that they've dedicated their lives to helping people, but this is a huge challenge that they could not have anticipated. So please thank her and all the people who work with her. But thank you also, Paul, for sharing your story with us, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing it with your kids, and continuing to have fun. I mean, that's what I'm taking out of this, is do stuff that makes you, makes you happy. Have fun.
So do stuff that just fills you with something that lights you up, whatever it happens to be, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be sports. It doesn't have to be anything in particular, whatever it is. Like, that's what I can relate to, right? Sports and writing and talking to people and trying to be a good vibe out there. And it's just what I enjoy doing.
Well, that's it. Enjoy what you do, connect, hope to do a good job along the way and maybe help some people. And, because I know probably for you as well, there's so many people who've helped me out along the way. And a lot of them probably don't know how much they've helped me.
Yeah, the people, like, when I needed legs, I got legs. When I needed bikes, I got bikes and skis. Like, all the product stuff that was so critical. That's a pretty crucial part of the whole picture right there when you're a disabled athlete and an athlete in general. But just getting the parts. Like, now I'm not to keep rambling on here, but I'm no longer the guy, so I don't get free stuff anymore. But luckily now I have insurance, so I can get stuff. But I still have the same bunch of legs I got that Oser was so kind to me to give me so many years. They paid me a chunk of money every month, and they gave me the legs I needed. And I've been very fortunate in that regard, for sure. I mean, it's ironic, right? Like, when I had no job and no money, I got all the legs I wanted. at 20 grand a pop. But now that I'm stable, it's hard to get a foot. It's hard to get new legs.
That is interesting, because oftentimes it's exactly the opposite. I remember seeing a quote in the Boston Globe. You and I share Massachusetts, and we share an affinity for Boston teams. I'm assuming you haven't jumped ship since you live in Colorado.
Yeah, I'm Boston all the way.
Okay. Phew. I was a little bit concerned right there. I didn't know if you'd gone orange and blue on me.
I walked in with the Boston Bruins mask. Someone gave me some crap about it. I'm like, it's not coming off. Yeah.
It's not coming off, exactly. Yeah, and don't give a hockey player a hard time about what he's wearing. That sounds like a really bad idea. But I remember reading in the Boston Globe back when Drew Bledsoe was the quarterback of the Patriots, and he said they never give you an apple for free until you can afford to buy the whole cart. And for a lot of people, that's the way that it goes. Is that, like for him, he gets to be huge and makes a gigantic salary and all this stuff, and then everybody wants to give him everything for free. But when you really need it is when you're starting out. And so for you, it was exactly the opposite, which had to be super fortuitous.
Yeah, very much so. And it reminds me of, I think you were nominated or won an ESPY at some point. Did you not?
I was never nominated for an ESPY. No. I think I preceded this whole thing. I know. I look at the next generation in some ways, and there's always that little bit of, you stand on the shoulders of those who went before you, and then you think, wow, but they who came after me, they got to do some really cool stuff. Yeah, and you've been nominated twice, right, for an ESPY?
2005, and the point is, like, you go to the ESPYs and they give you these bags full of all kinds of cool stuff. Like, do all these millionaire athletes really need all this stuff for free? Like, I'm glad I got it because I'm broke, but those guys, they like left a couple things out of my bag, and it says in the bag, like, if you don't get this, let us know. So I'm like, hey, I didn't get this. And then he sent me the whole bag all over again. I got like twice everything. I'm like, all kinds of stuff. That was pretty cool.
Swag. I don't think that you ever get over free stuff.
No, I still enjoy the swag. Yeah, swag for sure. But at the ESPYs, they sat me on the end. Like, when I took my seat, I was like on the aisle. I'm like, on the aisle. They wouldn't put me on the aisle if I didn't win.
Right.
And then I didn't win, but I was on the
You overthought it.
Yeah, Marlon Shirley won again. Yeah, so the track.
But a cool event, and also, I mean, talking about the ESPYs, I mean, one of the things, ESPN was great in promoting and producing our national championships when we were skiing, to get us out there and get people to see some of what we were doing. But then just to go to an event like that, I'd imagine that it's pretty cool to be there with the people that you watch on television. What was your thought about your place in the world as a result of getting invited to the ESPYs?
Geez, how do I answer that? Probably the coolest thing was, and I invited my dad. My dad was my guest, and me and my dad and Joe Theismann sat in the back of the bus on the way to the golf thing that they did. So it's just me sitting next to Joe Theismann. My dad's on this side, and we're just rapping about stuff. And I'm like, this is just cool. Like, I don't know if I deserve to be here, but I'm here, and it's fantastic. And who's the guy? The Patriot, Harrison. Harrison is sitting right in front of me. What's his first name?
Rodney Harrison.
Yeah, sitting in front of me, and like, I'm kind of rapping with him a little bit. He's not that chatty, but like, I just felt like I don't belong here, but I'm really having a ball. This is good stuff.
Well, I'd imagine Joe Theismann, to a certain extent, looked at you and went, I could have been in your position. I mean, with how badly his leg was broken, he could have been an amputee in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure. Let me tell you, that guy, he knows stop talking. Talk the whole time. It's all Joe all the time. But it was very entertaining. It was a good time.
Which is funny when you see that these are people you've seen on television, and suddenly they become real people, right? Well, Paul, I'll let you get out of here because usually we just go to 6 o'clock, but you've had so much great stuff that we've gone a little bit longer. So yeah, it's 11 after 6 right now. So I hope I haven't thrown a wrench into the dinner plans or anything like that. But well, thanks again, Paul. I look forward to seeing you in person. Keep up the great stuff, and yeah, we'll follow you. So I really appreciate it.